Hi everyone, I'm Joyce Lita, a passionate watercolor artist and a dedicated art educator. In today's video, I will guide you through a breathtaking tutorial focusing on the splendid robin. Let's dive right in and begin our artistic journey. You will need a 300 GSM cold pressed watercolor paper, 2 round brushes and an old brush, 2 water containers, tissues or cloth, and paints. Here is a list of supplies you will need for this painting. You can check the description for more details about these supplies. Let's start by drawing the robin. I've added the reference picture on the top left for your reference. Leaving about 1/3 of the page, draw a curved line pointing downward. This is for the top part of the bird. We will now draw the beak. Draw a small slight curve, then from the tip, draw a straight line inward and a slightly curved line downward. Now from the lower part of the beak, draw a small curve and then there's a bulge for which we will draw a semicircle. We will draw these curves to distinguish the areas with different colors. This part will be orange, this here will be in a brownish hue, and this part will be white. The bottom line of the eye is in line with the center line of the beak. We leave a little gap and then draw a small circle, making the top part of the circle flat. Draw a curve around the eye and go slightly downward. Now we'll draw a V shape with a slight curve and join it with the top part. Here you have a little white. I'm just marking it so it's easier while you paint. It's fine if you leave out this part. I'm drawing quite dark so that you can see the drawing clearly in the video, but while you are drawing, make sure that it is not very dark. For the wing, draw an inverted C and a slight curve and then draw a straight line. Extend the top part of the body to join at the wing. Draw a straight line downward from a little to the left of the wing. Draw the other line from the point where the body meets the wing and join it with the curve. Draw a W shape here. We will now draw these slightly curved lines and then draw diagonal lines on the wing. You can make these diagonal lines slightly curved so it looks more natural. And at the edge, draw a curve. If you find this drawing difficult, drop me a comment and I will send you the line out of this bird. Add another diagonal line on the tail. We will now mark the highlight in the eye so that we can leave it white while painting. We will move on to the legs. The legs are in line with this curved tip. Draw 2 thin parallel diagonal lines for both the legs. For the bark, we can draw a line that's parallel to the bottom of the paper and touches the edges of the bird's leg. For the feet, we will draw a V like the birds we used to draw as kids. Make 2 curved lines downward on the bark to show the grip of the bird and taper these as they go downward. Now draw 2 more curved lines going downward with a tapering tip. Once this is done, we can draw the claws, which are just V shapes. We will now draw the other feet in the same way. We are done with the drawing, so we can now get started with the painting. Before I start painting, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and gently dab it over the entire drawing to lighten the graphite marks. The reason I'm using a kneaded eraser and not a normal eraser is because the normal eraser will damage the tooth of the paper. You can see that the graphite marks are lighter here. Let's begin painting. For this orange, I'm going to make a mixture of Scarlet Lake and Indian Yellow. If you do not have these pigments, you can use any orange shade you have. I'm taking very little pigment because I want this area to be very light and I'm going to use a very watery mixture. For this part, I'm going to make a mixture of burnt umber and sap green. Since I want this too to be light, I'm using very little pigment. I'll take a little ultramarine blue to add a few strokes in this area. I'm adding water now to this pigment. I need it to be more orangish and watery. As you can see, this tip here is light. So I'm going to add yellow there and then paint the rest with the darker shade of orange. Let's paint this part yellow and then load your brush with orange and paint the remaining area. Make sure you do not give it a very defined edge like this because this will make it look very unnatural. So we'll instead give it a very ruffled edge. Fill in all the area that we had marked as an outline for the orange part. This line is helpful in guiding us to know where we need to paint. Don't worry about being perfect and painting just within the line. It's fine if the paint goes a little out of the lines. Now that this is done, we will paint the wings and the tail. Add water to this, and once you get the desired color, start painting the top part of the bird, leaving a slight gap here. There are a few hard edges formed here. I want these to be blended and soft so that they look like the feathers of the bird. So I'm going to take a damp brush by loading my brush with water and dabbing it on a tissue. I'm then going to slowly rub these areas so we get this nice smooth edges. For this part, as you can see in the reference picture, there's a clearly defined line, so I'm not going to smoothen this edge. I'm going to take a little ultramarine blue, make it very watery, and paint these two areas. Make sure there is white left on both the sides. When you're painting these areas, paint small curved strokes in the direction of the fur. I'm going to take the green and brown mixture and add similar strokes near the tail. These two areas will be white, but I'm going to just smoothen the edges. We will let this dry and work on the legs and the feet. For the leg, I'm taking a little scarlet lake and burnt umber. I want this to be more brownish, so I'm adding some more burnt umber to this mixture. To mute the color, I'm adding a little ultramarine blue. I'm using this mixture to paint only the right side of the feet and the leg, and I'm then going in with a clean brush to pull the paint to the rest of the area. I want this to be slightly less brighter, so I'm going to add more water while painting the other leg. I'm also dabbing this leg with the tissue to lighten it. I don't want the branch to be the focus, so I won't be adding details to it. I'm just going to wet the area and drop in paint randomly to show the texture of the bark. I'm dropping this green mixture at a few places, and then I'll take some brown and drop this pigment randomly on the branch. We made this area wet before painting so that we get a nice smooth blend of the different pigments. It's okay if there are a few white patches. To add more texture, load a brush with water and sprinkle a few drops across the branch. You'll get these pretty watercolor blooms. I'm also going to take my clean brush, load it with water, and add some more blooms by just touching the tip of the brush to the paper. Now we will paint the eye and beak with a very light wash of ultramarine blue. Our base layer is ready. We will wait for this to dry to add the details. I'm going to add some more scarlet lake to the mixture so that it's thicker than the previous mixture. I'm also adding a little more Indian yellow to the mixture. I'm going to take an old brush for this process because it can damage the bristles of the brush. I'm mixing the colors and then splaying the brush. Splay the brush in this thick mixture, but if there's a lot of water in it, just take a clean tissue and dab the belly of the brush to it. We will now paint strokes in the direction of the feathers. So here, the strokes will go upwards. When you're adding these strokes, slightly change the direction each time so that it looks more natural. I'm going to add a layer where there's a curve here. Just adding feathers at a few places. I will now take a clean brush and smoothen these strokes. You need to use a damp brush for this process. So if there's a lot of water on your brush, gently dab the belly of your brush. I'm doing this process so that these feathers are not very prominent. We'll need to do this process with a light hand because if you go over it with a heavy hand, it will rub off all these marks completely. If you feel there are some areas where the lines are too dark, you can just take a damp brush and just lighten those areas. Since my paper is wet, I'm going to drop in orange at a few places. This will help give form to this area. We will now move on to this part and repeat the similar process. I'm adding a little sap green and burnt umber to create a thick mixture for the feathers on the top part of the bird. Always follow the direction of the feathers when you're painting them. As you can see till here, we can go in this downwards in this direction, and then we'll just change the direction slightly. With every stroke, I'm moving my brush slightly so that it doesn't look like parallel lines and are more of natural looking feather effect. We will add a few strokes in this white area too to give the illusion of feathers. I'm just keeping on changing the direction of the brush slightly with every stroke. We'll now take a damp brush and then just gently go over this with a light hand so that these strokes are smoothened out. Even for this process, you need to make sure that you're following the direction of the feathers. So go in the direction that you've painted the feathers in. I'm taking some more paint and just adding strokes in a few places. I'm adding this orange shade to a little burnt umber and using it to paint this area. I'm going to add a few more feathers near the bottom part near the tail. I'll splay my brush in this pigment and lightly apply these strokes so that they are very fine. I'm going to take a little ultramarine blue and apply light strokes in this area where we had painted blue earlier. I'm taking Payne's Grey mixed with a little ultramarine blue to paint the beak and the eye. I'm painting the entire lower part of the beak with this color, and for the top part of the beak, I'm just painting the edges, and I'll later glaze it with a light shade of this paint. Use the same pigment to paint the eye, leaving out the highlight which we had marked earlier. If you by mistake paint on the highlighted area, that's totally okay. Once the paint dries, you can take white gouache and paint over the white highlight. I'll now paint the legs with a little bit of Payne's grey and brown and just add it at the edges, at the right side of the legs and the feet too. I don't want these to be very hard lines, so I'm going to take a clean brush and just slightly smoothen it out. Repeat the same process for even this leg. I feel like making this branch a little darker, so I'm going to go in with another layer. Since the beak has dried, I'm taking a watery mixture and just glazing over the beak. I will just lift a little paint from here with a clean brush. I'm taking a thick mixture of burnt umber, sap green and Payne's grey and using this to paint the wings. Paint over the diagonal lines we had marked earlier, making the edges thicker. This gives the illusion of a shadow forming on the bottom wing. Repeat this process for all the lines on the wing. I'll paint the curves we had marked here earlier with the same pigment. I'm using the same pigment to paint this area too. For this top part, I'm drawing a diagonal line and then making a curve at the edge. This wing is going to cast a shadow on the body, so I'm just going to make a slightly dark line here. I feel this area looks a little abrupt, so I'm going to take a light mixture of the same pigment and just glaze over that area. For the tail, I'm going to make a diagonal line with a very light hand, so the paint is very light in that area. I'm adding a little more Payne's grey and using it to paint the shadow part of the wing. I'm taking a thin brush and painting few random strokes in this area. Since there's too much of yellow in this area, I'm just going to glaze it with a little orange. I'm taking the same pigment which we had used for the shadow and giving a light outline for the feet and the leg. I'm just adding a few final details. I'm using a light watery mixture of brown to just glaze over this area. I'm going to darken the bark using the similar process we had done earlier. I'm going to add a little splash of purple in the background so that the focus is on the bird. I'm going to first wet the area around the bird and then add the purple. And if there are any hard edges left, I'm going to smoothen them out using the process we had learned earlier. Our beautiful bird painting is now ready. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, please do subscribe to my channel for more such videos. Thank you so much.